What's up guys, I'm Ishan, one half of MEMBA, and today I'm going to show you how to tempo sync CDJs with Ableton Live. I don't know how more people aren't doing this because it unlocks a lot of doors, is really fun, and lets you do stuff like this. Alright, so step one of setting this up is downloading a software called Beatlink Trigger. It's available on GitHub for free. It was made by James Elliott. Shout out the boy, absolute legend for making this for the community. So step two is make sure that you have a D-Link box. If you DJ a lot, you're already familiar with this. The one thing to note with the Beatlink is that the order that you plug these in actually matters so that the software knows to label the plays correctly. So how it would work is, say you had 4 decks, deck 1 would go into channel 1, which would go into Ethernet port 1. Deck 2 would go into channel 2, which would go into Ethernet port 2, etc. for 3 and 4. And then you plug the mixer in after that into input 5. And then in input 6, you would plug your laptop in. So you may need a D-Link with extra Ethernets. So that's something to bear in mind. All right, so step 3 is open up the Beatlink software, which will look like this. And what you need to do is select message type is link, and then click on the network dropdown and select the Ableton link setting, and then tick sync mode on, choose passive mode, and then click Ableton link sync. Next, you just go to Ableton and hit link in the top left corner. It'll say one link and highlight yellow once this is set up correctly. And there you go, it's as easy as that. Now, as I move the tempo slider, you can see that Ableton is also moving in sync. And on the Beatlink software here, it actually tells you the information of the track that's playing on the deck, as well as how it's labeled the players and a bunch of other stuff, which is super helpful. All right, so now I'm going to show you how we actually use this in a way that's helpful and adds to it rather than just, overcomplicating. So one thing is the use of atonal hits that just add hype and give people like a connotation to something, like for example, like you hear that and you kind of know it's like party time, and then we've got a bunch of other fun ones. And this is like a lot of stuff I may shout out on the mic or whatever anyway. If you have your own producer tag, you could put your own thing on here. And it's kind of fun when they work over anything. I also just have a bunch of hits up here that I'll probably never use. Come on, DJ, hit me with another track. Which are just there for jokes, if you're like playing it, I don't know, just for the homies or something, it could be funny to throw a few of those in. So this thing's fun and a cool use of it, and I'm sure you could get a lot out of that. Then the second way that we like to use it is to add looped breaks and drums that can add energy over build-ups that may be lacking it. Because often when we're writing songs, if it's streaming or other context, you leave out like the really EDM build-up. But then when you're playing live, especially if you're playing just straight slappers, you kind of want the energy to stay high even in those like breakdown moments sometimes. So this can enable that really easily. So the way we set these loops up is there's a drum beat, and it's basically a half bar drum loop that's repeating. And then what we've done is set up little eighth note variations below it with a follow action. So when you play this, it's gonna interrupt the first clip, do a variation, and then go back to it in a half bar loop, which is super helpful because say you're playing like, you got your song going, you can do stuff like, get the build faster, filter it out, EQ it away, and there you go, you've added some sauce to your build-up. This is kind of fun, and you kind of want to try and find drum loops that are going to work at a range of tempos. So a tresillo and just simple rhythm things, even just 8th note, 16th note, kick, snare, those would all be really helpful and useful across every tempo or whatever you're doing. If you're just, a house or drum and bass or specific genre DJ, then you could probably just lock in those type of beats. So the other effects that we've put on it are stuff like, like a high pass filter, low pass filter, kind of a fade to gray effect, which is like Ableton stock. And then there's this beat repeater. It kind of makes it phase, but you know, I don't hate it. I'm not that mad at it. It's fine because you can get rolls really easily off of any drum sample, which is kind of helpful. Then we've got one which makes it sound like it's just getting far away from you and closer. And then finally a really nice reverb throw that kind of ends off a section. You know, I'm often going at the end of sections. So to talk you through how the follow action works, find a drum loop that you like. Ideally have something that's like maybe an 8-bar loop with some variations within it. And then select a half-bar section, which is the main beat that you're going to be always coming back to. So for example, with this amen break, which we all know and love, it sounds like this. And then there's this kind of pickup one where what I've done is selected a clip, go to the follow action, turn on follow action, select going to first clip, and then set the quantize setting to a 16th note or an 8th note, and then select different regions of the beat, and you'll kind of find random variations. So like, that's one I picked, then there's one like, then there's one that goes, and finally, and then you can play between them too. Even though there's only 4, there's actually a lot of combinations of things that you can rock and roll with. So you can just have fun with this part. Find different combinations that get you stoked. Other things to bear in mind is that sync works completely normally. So if you want to use sync while you're DJing or anything, it's just going to work as usual, and Ableton's going to stay in sync with it. There is a little bit of tempo variability I've noticed because I stress tested it and went on wide and just like yoinked it around, and it like kind of follows, but it may be a hair off. And I think it's because Ableton goes to 100th decimal place and Pioneer seems to only go to 10th. So there's always a little variation. So there's an easy way to fix that, which is just nudge, which basically lets you do like when you're DJing and you do these. What you can do is either get an APC, which already has those buttons done, but if you just have any MIDI controller, you can map this button. These two are essentially the nudge. And what it does is it just quickly for a second slows the tempo, speeds up the tempo. So it just kind of adjusts and you just hold it to pull it into time. So that's kind of cool and can help you. And the move is obviously you trigger it in cue, make sure it's lined, and then do it. And if you're steady on tempo, it's going to be pretty safe most of the time. So let's quickly talk about the limitations. One thing I've noticed is the tempo on Ableton. If you go to 1, Ableton stops at 20.4 for some reason, and I don't know why that's the case, so just be careful. I don't think any of you are DJing at 1 BPM ever, so it should be fine, but something to bear in mind. Another limitation is that it's obviously off time a little bit, so you got to nudge around here and there and be ready to do that. Other than those limitations though, this thing works pretty damn well, and we actually tested it out during our set at Ultra 2024. We only had 2 minutes to change over, and we still managed to set this whole thing up. So it really is practical in a live setting. I hope all this was helpful. Please comment and let us know if you find any new uses or ways to set this up so we can keep learning from each other. Happy mixing. Peace out.